Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everybody tonight? I'm not camera friendly, so we
It's
just
all
gonna
right.
talk to the
All I'm gonna
avatar.
say to you is, I am extremely humbled.
Mhm.
I am very humbled. I am subscribed to your channel, my sister. I am humbled that you even gave me your time to come on this platform. And for those that don't know, Gail, can you put the Crimson Cure in the chat for me, please? Um, Crimson Cure, you're a very well known YouTuber, very well known in the
Mhm.
manosphere, and I am very, very humbled by
Mhm.
you giving me your time to come on my little old platform. But I love my platform. I got 300 strong rocking with me. So I am happy for my 300. We're going to do big
Mhm.
things.
Yes.
No problem. I got a few minutes, take a little bit of a break for some work I was doing, but I got a few minutes to spare to a productive conversation.
Thank you. What do you have to add, sister, to this conversation? I don't know how much you heard.
I pretty much heard all of it.
Okay. Can you speak to it, please?
Well, the thing that I think I would like to speak to briefly is the concept of speaking about women's issues and maybe men, paying more attention to women's issues and things of that nature. I think that we've had a long enough time in this society with trying to get men to be more sensitive and to be more in tune with what women are going through and what women, are doing, how we're feeling, how we view the world. And in general, I don't see that to be an issue because that's simply trying to get men to understand their counterpart. The imbalance has come though because women are not necessarily taught to um, to pay the same type of attention to men and how
Mm.
men think and male nature and how men see the world and their perspective of things. We've been so caught up in sort of a feminist, female driven sort of society, probably for the last, well, feminism's been going strong since like maybe the 60s. But
Right.
then, we've gotten into third wave and fourth wave and all that sort of thing. And it's just gotten worse and worse. So now women are believing that, what, everything is about me. And the men are supposed to cater to me and all of my feelings and all of my things. But the reciprocation is not there. We no longer care about what men do or what they think or how they interpret anything. We've whittled them down to work and money and protect me. Bishop talked a little bit earlier about 4 P's. We've whittled men down to 2. He's a provision and he's a protector. And when we say provision nowadays, we don't even think about all of the non-monetary things that men actually bring to us. And when we think about protection, we typically only think about how a man can put his life on the line for us. And we don't think about how men really protect what they really provide. And then we completely throw out their problem solving and their procreation. We only whittle that down to the intimate act of sex. And we don't think about their procreation in terms of the affection, in terms of a man's emotion and how he demonstrates his emotion differently than a woman would. So I have a tendency to get pushed back because it's like, well, you don't hold the men accountable. I'm not supposed to. The men
Mm,
hold other men accountable.
right.
Men are supposed to hold men accountable. And the reason why I say, for those ladies who may be listening or what have you, uh, the reason why I'm saying I don't hold men accountable is because I have never spent a single day in this life as a man. Not a single day. And I'm happy about that because I'm glad to be a woman, right? Like, so I like
Right.
being a woman.
Right.
I don't wish to live any moment of my life as a man at
Right.
all. And so men are the peers of other men. They understand their own internal things, the things that they do, the things that they go through, and they understand their own masculinity. And they understand when another man is not demonstrating it properly. And so they are equipped to say, hey, brother, this is not correct. This is incorrect. Um, I don't do it because women, especially Black women, don't really have any mirrors held up to them in truth to show them, listen, sister, it is not what you think it is. The way that we're living, the way that we are carrying our families, the way that we're carrying our culture, the way that we're carrying our what's left of our communities, this is not the way. And we have, as women, a responsibility in it as well. We can't just say, well, the men are supposed to be the leaders and they're supposed to dig it out of the mud. You might think that, and to a certain degree, that might be true, but women, it's not like we don't have any responsibility towards our own communities and our own families. We're either included or we're not.
Crimson Cure, I'm going to ask you something because when I first started um, listening to you, there was something that was very shocking to me. So I now have the ability to kind of ask you. I have both a Christian and an Islamic side. Uh, I was a Muslim for over 16 years in the city of New York before I became a Christian. And I used to always boast about things in Islam, but then when I saw you, it threw me off that a Muslim woman is speaking this. Is this same, I'm gonna use this word toxicity, but I'm using it lightly. Is this no, let me take that word out. Is this same dynamic now going on in Islam with the African American Muslims?
Um, to a certain degree, it's small, but it's growing a little bit just because we have Muslims who are here, who were born here, right? American
Right,
Black Muslims. We might have taken our Shahada at some point or what have you.
right.
But the problem is that a lot of us come into Islam, but not completely. It's
Okay.
coming in name only. It's coming in, there are Black women who are coming in to get covered by a Muslim brother, but she's not taking on Islam as her way of life, her worship.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
so if the marriage happens to dissolve, well, she's going to go back to what she knew before. She's not going to practice Islam or anything like that. She was just doing it so that she could get married because that brother was going to take care of her kids,
Got you.
whatever. So
Got you.
there's a lot of that. And there are other dynamics. It's not that that's the only thing,
Right.
but the problem that's plaguing the Muslims is basically the non-practice of Islam, because Islam in and of itself does not promote any form of feminism or any of these man-hating types
Right.
of thought patterns. It's highly patriarchal, actually, but it is also fair to the women. It's not a
Right.
situation where, oh, the women are just downtrodden and we're oppressed and we got to get out of here because the guys hate us. Like, it's not like that. Like, maybe sometimes the media likes to portray it that way or whatever, but I've been a Muslim since 1996 and I have never been oppressed at all by any Muslim brother, be he a Black man or any other ethnicity of man.
So they're pushing that what they did to the Christian community.
To
Oh,
a certain
yeah.
degree.
Yeah, this y'all now beginning stages.
Yeah, because it
In the
doesn't
church.
happen in the masjids, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Right.
the imams and stuff aren't preaching it. It's just that the women, you know, they're not coming. They're coming into Islam, like I said, name only, but they're not leaving the lost value system. They're not really
Right.
leaving it. They're not leaving that world and fully immersing and embracing. Okay, I'm Muslim, and this is what I have to believe in, and this is what I have to do in order to actually be Muslim. So we've got a lot of women who were gynocrats, basically feminists, basically, and then
Mhm.
they remain feminists. Like I'm gonna put the head cover on only because when I get around to other Muslims, they're gonna question me about it if I don't.
Right.
Or you know what I'm saying? It's like
Mhm.
it's superficial.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
and that's the part that's really throwing it off because I came up hardcore Muslim. You know, west side of Chicago, we was
Mhm.
doing the thing. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't.
Oh, Bishop, I'm gonna tell you. Hold on, Christian. Now, Bishop,
Mhm.
you know I'm talking about the message that Malcolm X preached at. She
Okay.
going to the area where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came from. So
Oh.
she
Okay.
hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from hardcore Pentecostalism, where
Yeah.
where
Well,
when
that's
Mhm.
you
where
had a
I'm at
certain
right
dress
now. Yes,
code.
sir.
Yeah, you get a certain dress code. You had to wear. You had to conduct yourself as a man. You had to conduct yourself as a woman. And then what they started doing, they started bringing stuff in like, oh, they're not letting women be ministers. They're not letting women be pastors and in men positions. And this is what we're seeing on a constant attack where stuff that used to be predominantly men and what stuff that used to be predominantly women, they introduced that feminism crap, and a lot of older men still pushing back against that because it's just a whole mess going on, especially in my denomination, especially with the dress codes and stuff. People like, I don't want to do that anymore.
I am glad that both of you have really articulated both from the Christian perspective and
Hmm.
the Islamic perspective. And I'll let everybody know in the chat. I used to be a Muslim. My daughter would tell you, make a salat 5 times a day. I done made my Hajj to Mecca, so it's still in me. I know the whole thing. And to hear Crimson Cure speak that way, it just shakes my head on how powerful this mindset is. It's powerful. It's powerful. Um, I'll just ask both of you because I'm in the learning stage right now. How do we get it started? Because we got women yelling at the men, we got the men yelling at the women, and I want to be a platform for the middle to say, okay, we can't yell at each other because this ain't working. This ain't working. What do y'all suggest? Because both of y'all been out here a lot longer than I have. I'm newbie. What can I bring to the table?
Well, I'll speak from the middle ground. What you're trying to do. Um, I coined myself the king of duality because I can't look at one side and leave it there. I have to pick up the other side and say, this is why it ain't working. This is why y'all off key because y'all not working in harmony. That's what I do. So to speak to you, what you're trying to do, you're trying to work the middle and trying to get people to work together in an environment where like what you're saying, no more yelling, none of this, that, and the third. And as a man, when you coming from that position, we're coming to bring SOS. We're not coming to hear about, well, you hurt my feelings. Okay, you got that out already because you've been yelling the whole time. Now let's put the real issues on the table, not the frivolous stuff of your little personal stuff about how you feel about the personal things that's going on in your personal life. You need to deal with that with a therapist. However, let's deal with the major issues and see what's going on with you. Now we have a sister to speak to it, and then we have a brother to speak to the brothers. Now, the position we're going to take, Uncle Stu, is come to the middle and say, let's marry the two. Let's now try to see how can we work together. Let's see
Right.
how can we form a bond to where our children are safe at this point in time. Because forget about your old problems, you know what I mean? Because
Right,
we're now at
right.
the age where we can't do the blame game anymore because we got people that's under 18 who need a functional reality. They didn't seem dysfunction for too long. And we trying to make sure that we give them a healthy and a whole life. We want to be very holistic when we do the approach of bringing two parties together that has been broken.
Right.
So it's going to take a lot of work, but we're coming from the standpoint of being holistic.
Right. Because I'll tell you, you know, my daughter and I, who's in the chat, you know, we when I first started this YouTube channel, you know, that was one of the first things that we did. You know, we brought it out into the public that we had issues, you know, but one of the most positive things that my daughter said, she says, you know, someone asked her, well, how does it feel to be with your dad now? She said, well, I know the old dad, but now I'm trying to learn this new one, where she's seeing today. And so this issue for me is not just, you know, intellectual.
Right.
This is personal. You know, this is personal. And it's funny because she can relate to both of y'all. She know the dad that was a Muslim, and she know the dad that's a Christian. You know, and both from a theological perspective, neither one was good until now. You know, so that's where this becomes personal. Crimson Cure, what do you have to say to this?
I was talking on mute. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Look, I was looking at the time, Bishop. I was like,
right.
Is the light on me?
No, you know, there is room for it all. There is room for the middle ground, and there's room for people on either side. Now, I'm not gonna say we can't yell at each other, because I yell on my platform every day. Every day I'm yelling. I'm screaming to the top of my lungs. Everybody that's watched it, they know.
Don't worry,
but that really just comes from the passion of it, you know, because I see it as being in such a dire place. Black people, we are not in a place where we have time to dilly-dally. Excuse me. We don't really have time for the blame game. We don't actually have time for the gender war. We don't have time. And when I talk to women, and I saw something in the chat that I want to speak to.
Okay.
Because,
you got a timestamp for me?
let me scroll back up, because someone said, I'm trying to scroll back up. Oh, Miss Adrian Nash, and I'm not picking on her, but she's interested in women should not hold men accountable and men should not hold women accountable. And it was a question. And I think she was referring, this was back when I was talking about holding people accountable. And just to sort of address that, women hold women accountable, but men hold both accountable. And the reason why men hold both accountable is that if we're going to say that we want men to be the leaders of our communities, which the reality and boots on the ground is that women have been the leaders of the Black community. We've been in charge. We've been in charge.
Say that again.
Women have been in charge of the Black communities since probably like the 60s or 70s, strong. Now, there was always the big mama presence, but then big mama had big daddy back in the day. You know what I mean? Now, when I was growing up in the generation after me, that is really strong. Black women are the ones who have been leading the charge, for good or for bad, for the Black community. We've been making decisions on family. We've been making decisions on how the family is structured, who gets to have a family, who gets to not have a family, and all of these various things, right? So now, if we want to say that the men are supposed to be the leaders, well, then the leaders are supposed to hold themselves accountable as leaders, and they hold the followers accountable. When you are the leader of a group, you're not only holding yourself accountable for for the success or the failure of that group, but you are also holding the people who are in the group accountable for the success or the failure of the group. Because if I delegate a task to those who are supposed to be doing these tasks to help the group succeed and you don't do your part, yeah, okay, is it on me as a leader ultimately? Yeah, but I'm still able to hold you accountable personally because you didn't do what I delegated you to do that led to the failure. Does that make sense? That
It
leads to
does.
the failure of us as a group. So if we're going to be Black women and we're going to say, okay, well, the men are supposed to be leaders of the group, that means the men not only get themselves together, but they supposed to be able to come and say to the women, you get together too. And to further that point, men are the ones who are supposed to be creating the culture. We as women only pass down a culture. So if our men are going to create this culture for us that is supposed to be, or at least we want it to be beneficial to all of us, then they're going to have to at some point lay that groundwork down for us and say, okay, women, this is what it's gonna be. This is what we need to do, because that's part of men's what? Problem solving. That's part of it. So he's gonna be like, okay, this is what we need to do, even on an individual basis in our families, right? If you marry a man and he comes into your life and he says, okay, this is how we're gonna do things. If we're gonna say, okay, well, the men are the leaders, then okay. The men are the leaders, right? And he's going to come in and lay the groundwork. We have work to do behind that as women, because if he's going to say this is the groundwork, he's has to hold us accountable to our part of that. He has to, because if he doesn't hold us accountable to our part of it, he's not a good leader.
Can you address my daughter's issues and questions? She says, I know for me personally, and what I have seen from some others, we are made to lead because some men don't know how to lead properly. So what do we do? And I'm going to admit, Crimson Cure, the men sucked, at least for me. So I can't even say that she's ever seen or her life a full example of what male leadership looked like. So I'll be the first to raise my hand and said I failed. Now she sees leadership, but she's no longer under my tutelage because she's a married woman now. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. And I understand, like, because we come from these broken homes, broken places, dysfunctional relationships that we may or may not have had with our fathers. I love my father to death. When we were growing up, it was dysfunctional. Right? Like, we were dysfunctional in the household. You know what I'm saying? And he was dysfunctional too. It wasn't like everything else was dysfunctional and he wasn't. Right. But here's the thing that I want to address for our ladies. When I say men are designed to lead, everything is not equal. There are some men who are better leaders than others. And that's just the way that it is. Mm-hmm. Some men are better leaders than others. Some men have a better handle on the ability to create structures, on the ability to instill system and order around them. And they do an excellent job of that. Other men who aren't as adept at that typically put themselves underneath a man who is. Because if he is not adept enough to create his own structures, what he'll do is get under a man who has one and adopt that structure for himself, right? And so, like I said, everything is not equal. All men are not equal in that area. However, I can still speak generally to say men are equipped to lead just because of how they're psychologically built. Men are built psychologically. That's a biology thing. That's not even so much a culture thing. That's more biology. Men simply think and operate and perceive the world differently than women, that better equips him for a leadership role. That doesn't mean that there are no women who are capable of taking a role, at least temporarily, to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna, have my stuff together. But typically women need a structure, even if she doesn't create it on her own, because we don't create those. So structures can come in the form of, well, my religion tells me, right? My structure when my husband passed away was Islam. That was the structure. You see what I'm saying? Like, that was what dictated to me what I should and shouldn't. And I was accountable to it. So women always need something to be accountable to outside of us, because we start justifying what we do because we're emotionally driven. And when I say things like that, that's not a slam. That's just the biology of who we are. That's all that it is. That's all that I'm talking about. So yeah, are you gonna run into men who aren't quite equipped for the leadership role? Yeah, but then that means if you run into that guy, don't put your life in his hands. That's what that means, because he's ill-equipped. So why would we deal with him on any level that, especially if we don't have to, because he's not equipped for it. So you go and find a man that is.
Wow. What do you have to say on this, Bishop?
She's 100. You know what I mean? She said it well said. But definitely, yeah, the men have to stand up and take control back, not ask for it. Like, can you give me the control back? No, you have to stand up and say, no, we're running this. If you can either stay with us or you can go somewhere else. And 9 times out of 10, when a woman hears a man speak that out loud, they're gonna be like, well, I'm gonna follow him, because apparently I don't know what to do because I'm not equipped to be a leader. And a lot of women will abandon a lot of these female leaderships and they'll follow the SOS of a man once they feel that it is solid. But men have to build a solid SOS. They can't be saying, I'm the leader of everything. And then they be like, baby, what do I do? You can't do that. Because once you do that, she be like, oh, sit down, Negro. You ain't doing nothing. But you have to stand up and say, we're going to do this. Not can we do this? No, we're going to do this. And we're going to make sure that everything is turned correctly, turned back correctly. Now, is it going to be easy? No, you got to do heavy lifting. But we're going to run into some pansy men that's not going to want to do, they're not going to want to do heavy lifting. They're going to cry. I'm like, this is too much, my brother. And then guess what? For us men, what we're going to do? We're going to leave them behind. We have to get in our minds that everyone is not going to want to follow along. They're going to want to keep following this lost value system that was given to them by this world and actually have destroyed our Black community. So some people are comfortable with living in dysfunction, and you're going to have to just, respectfully leave them there.
I've said that on an occasion, but because you again, I'm going more in your history on this YouTube space.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Because, okay, I'm going to say it this way, and maybe you can help me with the argument.
Mm-hmm.
I have argued that men, we need to just go ahead and level up. Let's go ahead and get the healing we need. Certain things aren't going to change. We can sit here, yell at women 24 hours a day. It ain't going to work.
Right.
You can't change however they think. And my argument has always been, hey, let's just go ahead for some of us. Let's get healing. Let's level up. Let's do what we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, hold on. Crimson Cure, I want to thank you. I am again humbled.
Yes.
Everybody ain't going to understand, but when I get off of this YouTube, I'm going to be Allahu Akbar and all around here. Because that I know in this YouTube space on my platform. So Bishop, you have to forgive me. Forgive me, Bishop.
No,
You got to
you
forgive
good.
me now. But I am very blessed and humbled that you took the time, to come and speak on my platform. And
No
trust me, this is a day that I
problem.
will never forget. Thank you.
You're so welcome. No problem. I'll be listening in the clouds.
All right.
All right,
Assalamu
sis.
alaikum rahmatullah.
Oh, walaikum assalam.
This is Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. Like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe. Emancipate your mind. Peace.